welcome back. Well, today's video is going to be a topic that is something that's probably quite familiar to all of us in different ways. It's something we've all heard about, and it is, of course, as you'll have seen from the title, all about self-love. Now, self-love is something that we all need to practice, and particularly important at the moment, as you know, we're coming into a darker time of years, so it's less inviting, if you like, to go outside and enjoy the nature and the fresh air, but also as we have some sort of darker stories on the news channels at the moment, and I think it's very true that an awful lot of us have got a few concerns and worries in terms of the economic crisis and all these different bits and pieces that are kind of piling on top of us in addition to our everyday lives that we live. So, you know, as I said, it's something that we all really need to practice. But I suspect that most of us don't use it, or don't use it enough in order to really feel the benefit that this can potentially bring into your life. Now, throughout this video, I want to get really sort of down and dirty and very honest about you, that the challenges that many, in fact, probably most of you are facing when it comes to self-love, the reasons why I personally believe that this could be the case, and then I want to give you some of my own personal strategies that I've been using in an attempt to overcome some of these very real challenges. Now, in addition to this, as always, I've got some completely free content that I want to give to you that will enable you to work on yourself and support you on your own personal journey straight away. If you're watching this recording on YouTube, then you're going to find the link right at the top of the description that supports this particular video. And you can click on that, pop your details in there, and we will send you the free content immediately in return. So it's really easy to get your hands on the goodies that are available. Now, make sure that you also like and subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends, because the more people that hear this message, the better at the moment. We've got loads of great content coming up to share with you, and there's a lot of really good stuff on the page already. So make sure that you get in there and really, you know, take the time. You may want to listen to this video a couple of times over, because there's a lot of information that I want to give you and share with you. So it really is sent from me with love to kind of try and help you and support you through what could be some sort of difficult times that we're all facing at this current moment in time. So, as I said, what I really want to talk to you about today is self-love, but don't sort of give up on me straight away, because all the gurus I know are talking about self-love at the moment, and you know, they sit there in their picture perfect homes with everything sort of set out like they've got all of their stuff together. And the reality is that life isn't like that, and it's not like that for any of us. So however together somebody tells you they are, there's areas of their life that still need looking at. And the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, that learning to love yourself can be pretty freaking hard, in all honesty. Now, through this video today, I want to be really realistic with you here, and I'm also going to be honest and bare some of my own sort of soul. Now, as I said, you know, there are so many articles, books and speakers and teachers that are out there at the moment that sort of project this image of this glow of a perfect life and self-love, and, you know, telling you to get yourself into a space where you're ready to learn to love yourself. And often the reality is that although this is possible, it's only possible after you've gone through a ton of really gritty inner work and soul searching. And the reality is there are simply no shortcuts here for any of us. And I'm really sorry about that. You know, I would love to sort of wave a magic wand and give you the secret words to use or the secret ingredients to make a potion that just made life easier. But the fact is, it doesn't work that way, and it's not supposed to, for a very good reason. Now, I think I said I was going to be very honest with you, and so I think the first thing I want to do is tell you why I'm feeling really compelled to share this particular bit of information with you right now. Now, some of you that know me, or some of you that have followed me for a little while, know that I'm a mummy. I have two incredible little people in my life, but my little boy Isaac, who is 4, has got some really quite complex health difficulties at the moment that are under investigation. And I think that in this kind of situation, and it doesn't have to be somebody with an ill child, it can be stresses at work, it can be financial concerns, it can be aging parents, it can be struggles with your own health, whatever that may be. But there are always going to be situations in life that sort of crop up and almost take you off track and, you know, make it really, really difficult for you to focus on yourself, and sometimes even makes you feel really overindulgent if you try and take a few minutes of your time to look after yourself. So I'm going to sit here today and really try and share some of my reality and some of the things that I have learned, and indeed am still learning as I continue on my journey. So I will relate to me and to my own personal situation, but I'm going to try and give you a broader expanse of topics when I give examples and explanations to try and sort of, break down the things that I'm trying to tell you. So, as I said, there are simply no shortcuts when it comes to self-love. You know, how can you start to love yourself more when your mind is literally at war with itself? How can you love yourself when you hate what you see in the mirror, when you constantly feel that you're not good enough? How can you love yourself when your environment is toxic, it's depressing, it's chaotic, there's no sort of calming areas at all? How can you love yourself when you have no positive role models in your life? These are all very, very real situations. How can you learn to love yourself more when people have labelled you as being selfish or neglectful or overindulgent? You know, all of these are how can we overcome these things? And while I don't profess to sit here and tell you that I know all of the answers, what I do know is that, as I said, there's no sort of magical wand that suddenly makes you a more self-loving individual. Now, after being on this bandwagon for what feels like a particularly long time, and moving from literal sort of despair and real negativity to sort of a more of a daily self-compassion practice, and I'm softening it a little, I have worked through a lot of really deep-seated trauma, and also helping others to do the same has given me some really sort of significant breakthroughs, if you like, and realizations. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got answers to every single one of your questions or every single one of your challenges. But what I do want to try and do is share with you some tools and some techniques and some lessons that I've learned, or some resources that I use, that I believe you can incorporate to help you start to make some changes in your lives. Now, in short, self-love is about forgiveness. It's about acceptance and respect for who you are deep down, all of you, even those wounded parts of you that you possibly want to try and hide from the world. They're beautiful and they are part of you. When you love yourself, you take care of yourself and you honor your your limitations and your inabilities, and you listen to your needs, you respect your dreams. And the key here is that you respect them enough to act on them. When you love yourself, your happiness, your health, your fulfillment, everything you want are all of absolute priority, of complete importance to you, because you realize that without loving yourself, you will never be able to genuinely love others in the way that we are meant to do as human beings. Now, self-love really illuminates you, it improves you and deepens every single aspect of your life. And there are so many benefits of learning how to love yourself. And, you know, it almost seems that every time we turn on the TV or we read a newspaper article or a magazine, there's more and more talk of self-love. Now, for me, being more tolerant of your flaws and your weaknesses is the first thing that you need to do. It will give you heightened self-confidence. It increases your self-forgiveness. It generates a healthier mindset and sort of starts to put an end to self-sabotaging and negative thoughts that you may be having. It improves your ability to discover and fulfill your own personal destiny, whatever that may be. It gives you increased love, acceptance and compassion for yourself and for others, for the world around you. It gives you more acceptance and compassion, as I've just said, makes you a nicer person to be around, really. It can give you improved relationships. It can give you better, stronger, more rewarding friendships. It can give you more satisfaction out of your career, out of your work life, whatever that may look like for you. It gives you more authentic connections with people, whether they are your friends, your neighbours, your work colleagues, people you meet on the street. It gives you enhanced joy and gratitude for the life that you're living. It can make you playful. It can make you creative. It can give you a spontaneity that perhaps you haven't had before. Self-love can also give you higher levels of self-trust because you're believing in yourself. You know what it is that you need. It helps you and enables you to make wiser choices as you move through life because you're looking after yourself more. It gives you increased access to new opportunities that are coming through to you really on a regular basis. It can improve your mental health and help with reducing anxiety and depression. And it can really help you to deepen your access to your soul and your own spiritual path or journey that you are moving along. Now, I could sit here and go on and on and on about the benefits of self-love, but for me, they are the immediate benefits that come to mind, and possibly some of the most important and probably the most relevant ones to the audience in general. But perhaps what is most satisfying about learning how to love yourself is that it opens up your heart, giving you access to your deeper, truer self, which is your soul. So fair enough, we know we can all list, I'm sure, some of the benefits of self-love and the reasons why we should practice it. But knowing it and actually making it a reality can be two completely different things. So what I want to look at now is, why is it so damn hard to love ourselves? And why do we struggle with it as much as we do? It seems to be, for some people, not for everyone, but for some, it seems to be almost like a chore and a bit of a constant battle just to get a basic process in place. Now, the short answer to this question is that most of us were raised in a society and quite probably a family that failed to teach us about the importance of self-love. In the main, all throughout our early lives, we were taught how to read, how to write, how to calculate, how to build, to study, to analyze life and really sort of, you know, build the academic blocks that we need. We were taught how to say please and thank you, as well as what is acceptable and what is unacceptable to others and to society as a whole. But most of us were never actually educated in one essential dimension of life, that being the art of self-love and to some extent self-respect. Now, something that continues to shock me on a regular basis when I talk to different people that I work with is the distinct lack of emphasis on growing a healthy level of self-acceptance and self-worth. Now, it seems to me that, children in a lot of cases are not taught the value of loving themselves and setting healthy boundaries. And children are not necessarily given the ability to say no when they actually mean yes, and vice versa. So, we are generally instilling into our children how to be almost like a good martyr. So sacrificing things for yourself, for your mental or your emotional health, for the needs of somebody else. Now, if you were sort of raised in a culture or a family environment or a society that's similar to this, you're going to understand what I'm getting at here, and that you were probably conditioned in a way of, and it's not a bad way, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is wrong, but the whole mindset of put others first before yourself, and not always to give the relevant amount of consideration to your own needs. Now, please, I'm not sort of saying that this is wrong or that your parents brought you up incorrectly or what have you. But what I'm saying is that sometimes the balances weren't correct, and that self-sacrifice and values that are taught to children continue to be elevated as markers of kind, caring, and worthy attributes of a good human being in society today. And that's something that really does concern me a little. So if you were someone that was perhaps taught and brought up in this way, then you may have developed into somebody who doesn't give perhaps quite as much consideration to your own personal needs. And typically in these cases, self-denial and self-sacrifice are two main values that are taught in childhoods, and they continue to be elevated as markers of a good, kind, caring individual, of a worthy human being, if you like, as we sort of grow into adulthood. And that is something that we see on a very, very regular basis. Now, what I have subsequently learnt later in life is that these two values, so the self-denial and the self-sacrifice, actually teach you little more than a profound emotional and psychological kind of pain, if you like, of being self-imposed and a bit of a martyr, if you like, with no real understanding of how to take care of yourself, particularly at times when you might need it the most, because your mindset is always that others matter more than you and that their needs are more important than your own. And this is particularly relevant for me at the moment when, my little boy, he's spending a lot of time in and out of hospital, and my sole purpose as a mum has been all around him. And, irrespective of what's going on in my world, absolutely everything has been directed at him. And once again, I'm not saying that that is wrong, but what I am saying is that it's not easy to sustain that level of giving on a long-term basis, because very soon you're going to be running on empty, and that's not a good place for anybody to be. Now, the result of not being taught the value of self-love in childhood and adopting the more sort of socially acceptable guise of putting others before you and being a martyr can in itself lead to resentment, bitterness, anxiety. You can have some really kind of troubling issues around self-esteem as well. However, even though you may not have been taught the process or the principles of how to love yourself when you were growing up, that doesn't mean that that window of opportunity is gone. It is there. It is still open to you, whatever phase in life you currently find yourself. But before we go into that, what I want to do is really try and explore and blow open, if you like, a few of the myths that are associated quite frequently with self-love and to some extent perpetuated by the same society that actually taught you to be externally focused rather than looking after the needs of yourself in the first place. So the first thing we're going to examine today is self-love selfish? Now, every now and then you may hear somebody sort of explicitly state, or even just, snidely imply that self-love is really self-indulgent and very selfish. And perhaps you live in a family that condemns any form of self-care or celebrates toxic self-sacrifice and martyrdom instead, the one that just gives everything away. Maybe you are someone who works in an environment where self-love is scoffed at or reviewed as people look at you in a cynical way if you're sort of investing in yourself. But whatever the case, whatever your particular situation is, it's important to really nip it in the bud now, because it's a massive, massive misconception. Self-love isn't selfish because, as I've alluded to already, without taking care of yourself, you eventually become incapable of truly taking care of others. And that's something I really learned when I was spending a lot of time in the hospital with my little boy. Now, self-love actually benefits other people too. So it's not just about you and what you're giving yourself, because when you're genuinely in a place of experiencing self-love, and when you really can truly and honestly accept yourself, you're also able to love and accept others much more freely and much more fully. So, we've all heard the phrase, how can an empty cup be used to quench the thirst of others? It can't. It's impossible. So likewise, it's impossible for us to give love if we haven't first fulfilled ourselves and our own needs and our own requirements. And it really can be broken down as simply as that. Now, it is a well-known psychological fact that mistreatment of yourself can, and usually, not always, but usually does result in the mistreatment of others as well. Now, there's a professor of educational psychology, Kristen Neff, and this psychologist has written that self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness, concern, and support that you would show to a good friend. When faced with difficult life struggles or confronting personal mistakes and challenges or failures and inadequacies, whether perceived or highlighted by others, self-compassion responds with kindness rather than harsh self-judgment and criticism, because it's recognizing that imperfection is actually part of a shared human experience. None of us were put on this earth to live this life as a perfect being, as a perfect individual. So the next time you start feeling guilty for dedicating time to yourself or for caring for your own needs, just remind yourself that by investing in you and practicing that little bit of self-love, even if it's only for a few minutes to start with each day, you are actually strengthening your ability to love others and to give more back, certainly more freely. Now, in these videos, we tend to look a little bit at what science says about the topic that we're talking about as well. And there have certainly, in this case, been numerous studies that have shown that learning how to love ourselves is indeed incredibly beneficial. And some of the examples that have been highlighted through these scientific studies have included things like self-acceptance being the key to living a happier life. That's a really nice one. Self-acceptance is the key to living a happier life. Self-compassion results in making better and often healthier decisions about whatever it is you're dealing with. Being kind to yourself results in less anxiety and it's less likely to trigger depression. And another one is that self-compassion really can help you to reduce the stress that leads to procrastination. And that's something that an awful lot of us deal with on a regular basis. Self-care can indeed help you reach your goals. And remember, again, these are scientifically proven statements. Self-love can support you through situations of adversity and struggle. And contrary to popular belief, learning how to nourish and love yourself isn't new age kind of woo-woo mumbo jumbo. It's actually one of the smartest, biggest investments and the best decisions you can ever make in your own life. The biggest investment you should ever make is one into yourself. And that is something that I really want you to sort of spend a little bit of time thinking about. So what about some of the darker sides of self-love? You know, learning how to adopt a process of loving yourself might feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but it's not always about sunshine and roses and, you know, all the good stuff as well. Because the truth is that most people may not want to fully support you on a self-love journey. However, of course, as always, there are some exceptions. So really, really hold on to those people. They're the ones that you really, really need on your team. Not only that, but society still at large can continue to bombard you with sort of toxic messages, you know, things like you have to make people like you and accept you. Says who? Okay. You have to put other people's needs above your own all of the time and without exception. Tell me why. Justify that. You have to conform to the status quo and fit in with society's sort of standards and requirements. Where's the fun in that? And when it comes to people around you, you may find that you're picking up on some of these kind of unspoken messages. Perhaps you've heard people say you have to be unhappy and discontent to fit in with society and to really be part of this community. And the reality is that most people, actually, as crazy as this sounds, most people don't really like being happy. And instead they prefer the comfort and stability and security of kind of like being part of the pack and of the herd and, you know, having something to grumble about. Well, why is that? Well, in my opinion, it's because safety and predictability is ultimately the most comfortable way to live according to a dominant cultural standard, if you like. So it's fitting in with the pack. But unfortunately, like the childlike mindset of needing to seek safety is precisely what makes most people so hesitant. Resistance to support your self-love journey is also an easy avenue to go down. And when this happens, you become your own biggest threat. Okay, when you walk a path less traveled, You directly contradict what others have invested so much of their lifetime and their effort into believing. And you're basically standing there and saying, hang on, there is a different way. Cultivating comfort is not necessarily always for your greater good. And inevitably, if you are someone that is trying to benefit yourself and better yourself, then you become a threat to those who are less willing to do so. By challenging people to reconsider their choices, their actions, and their mindsets through influence of your own behavior, you unintentionally trigger self-doubt in them, and therefore that often manifests as fear in other people. Very few people are brave enough to honestly look at themselves and make the changes that really need to be made. So if you're doing that, hats off to you, my friend, because you are one of the few. But at some point, we all have to face the truth that when you start to practice self-love, you will benefit, but there will be haters, because there always are. You stop fitting in, perhaps, with the crowd that you always hung out with in the past. You cease being one of the misery-loving gang, you know, the crew who thrive on self-pity and cynicism. Now, I'm being a bit harsh here. It's not always that dramatic, but I'm trying to make a point. But suddenly, this can make you also feel very, very uncomfortable, and it puts you in a position where you have to choose between taking the narrow path to better yourself or the wide and easy path to stay where you are, achieving the same things you've always achieved. Some of us, probably quite a lot, give up, but others among you will persist and end up sort of getting stronger because of the courage, having the courage of your convictions. Now, both sides of this struggle are understandable and actually totally normal. It's something that happens in life frequently. But thankfully, life also gives us many choices to kind of bounce back and recreate our paths and our chosen route. And for those of us who do manage to get back up and continue to better ourselves and improve our lives, then it is inevitable that we will find ourselves occasionally pushing against what feels like a never-ending onslaught of you're just too self-indulgent. That's incredibly selfish behavior. You're not that good. Why do you think you should invest in yourself? You should be more like us. You're not worth it. You're so selfish. But with time, it gets easier. And with practice, I promise you, it will become like water off a duck's back. Because loving yourself truly and deeply, particularly in this era, is becoming more acceptable, and it is breaking down the molds of some of the things that historically we have been taught to believe. And in fact, I'd say you deserve to, almost have a party to honor yourself for really having the guts to take the time and invest in yourself, because it really is going to be a challenge from time to time. So how can we prevent others from dragging us down when we're trying to improve ourselves? Well, as we've just explored, you are inevitably going to be faced with people who disagree or disapprove of what you're doing, and some will be outright challenging in terms of your desire to make self-love part of your life as you move forward. But in order to see the bigger picture and stop them from bringing you down or making you change your mind about some of the changes you want to make, then you need to realize that other people are scared and in pain. Okay? One big element of learning how to love yourself more comes from training yourself to not take others' treatment of you personally. Okay? They are not directing it at you personally. Ask yourself, how can a person who knows only self-sacrifice and self-abandonment give you approval or acceptance? That's kind of like expecting a baby to climb a mountain. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, and it can't happen, and nothing is going to make it happen. Therefore, what's the point of you getting hurt, upset, unhappy over the people in your lives who are not willing to support you? Okay? If they are going to speak out against you, are they really the kind of people that you want in your team? Their very actions speak of their abject lack of self-love, and that's the kind of thing we are trying to bring into your life. And actually, when you think about it, that's really, really quite sad. Most people not only fail to possess self-love, but they're also so caught up in a world of fear and pain, and so worried about what everybody else thinks. But the reality is that these things are sourced from the illusion that we are somehow separated from the life that we are living. Okay, so if you think you're constantly in fear or pain or anxiety of something, that becomes the reality of your life. Humans are having a life experience rather than life having a human experience. And once you realize that people are basically scared most of the time, it takes the sting out of their disapproving stares and their judgment and their mistreatment of you, because you are just making your own life experience the best it possibly can be for you. And it also frees up the energy within you to actually provide yourself with even more self-love, which is going to make you feel even better and make your life experiences so much better as well. Once this realization hits you in the heart as well as the head, you will eventually stop reacting to their negativity. And actually, you'll find that you start to feel some sense of compassion for them instead. And it is precisely this compassion that perhaps confuses them the most. And yet sometimes that compassion is also enough to motivate them to try and do something about it themselves, for them to try and take the same path or the same journey that you are embarking on. Realize that how other people treat you is a reflection of how they treat themselves, okay? It hurts to be the only one in your social circle that is trying to take some responsibility for your life. It hurts to be rejected by your friends, your family, by society, by work colleagues, or by an amalgamation of all of the above, because you are trying to better yourself and take a different path in your own particular life. But learning how to love yourself undeniably can hurt you sometimes, and at other times it feels incredible, it's blissful, it's wondrous, it just feels so rewarding. But if there's any one lesson that you can take away from people who treat you in a negative way, it is that their actions mirror how they treat themselves. And I've said that before, but I'm repeating it because it is so important. It's how they are treating themselves. Let me ask you, do you think a person who mistreats you thinks they are superior than you? More often than not, the answer is a big fat no, okay? They mistreat you because in some way they are threatened by you. They're jealous of you. They don't want you to succeed in something that they feel they can't do in some way, shape or form. And unless they are, clinically diagnosed as a psychopath or with some other kind of behavioral challenges, most people are deeply insecure and fearful, not simply nasty just for the sake of it. Okay, most people are not nasty, cruel sometimes and spiteful and hurtful with their words, but ingrained they're not nasty people. And the more you go against the grain of these people, the more threatening you become to them, and you make them feel insecure about themselves and their own position. Once you understand this, your ability to practice self-love becomes even easier. And that is where the key is to this. So let me ask you now, is it possible to love yourself unconditionally? Well, that's quite a challenging question in itself. So unless you've reached a really, really high level of spiritual maturity, then I would suggest that possibly loving yourself unconditionally isn't generally something that you're ever going to easily achieve. It's not something that comes to us naturally. The reality is you've got to work for it. Okay? As with pretty much anything in this life, you get what you work for. As spiritual beings having a human experience, our lives are categorized by highs, lows, and plateaus, okay? And we all experience these different things at different times in our lives. So there'll be times when we celebrate who we are and what we've done, and we feel really confident and invigorated and inspired by our abilities. But in other times, you might find yourself having some kind of crisis or a dark night of the soul, or, you're just completely lost and feeling really, really vulnerable. You feel insecure. Maybe you feel ugly, fat, messy, unloved, basically just a bit shitty. And we all have times when we're going to go through that. And you need to understand that this is normal. In fact, you might go through this cycle within a week, a day, a month. It might be something that goes on for a period of time. It might come and go. But the important thing here is to embed self-love so deeply into your daily inner work or your daily sort of spiritual practice that it becomes a habit as normal as scrubbing your teeth or brushing your hair. And then when these times of challenge do come and you are sort of struggling a little bit, you will be able to practice mindfulness and awareness, which will, it's not going to make things necessarily easier for you, but it will cushion you. And instead of getting yourself swept up in the self-loathing that you may have been experiencing, you'll find that you are more capable of practicing self-compassion and supporting yourself through these difficult times. So instead of neglecting your body, you'll know when to practice self-care. And even if you're really struggling to find the time to fit these things into your routine, as I was when Isaac was in hospital, during these really, really dark moments, which, let's be honest, we all have and we will all continue to have at different stages through our lives. If you've got some kind of routine, you will be more prone to catching and stopping the tirade of negative thoughts that will sort of grow like a tsunami into your mind. You'll be more in control of the situation. Now, for sure, you are going to, occasionally you're going to experience sort of moments of absolute self-hatred, just as you're going to accept moments of self-love and acceptance. But these moments are fleeting and they don't last. But to make self-love and acceptance more of a consistent sort of visitor in your life, you have to practice it consciously every single day. No excuses, okay? Might only be a couple of minutes, doesn't matter. The message here is don't be upset if you alternate between self-love and self-hatred, okay? That is part of human existence. Having unconditional self-love, in my opinion, is unrealistic. It's a standard that you're setting for yourself that is too high for anybody to live up to, because life itself is a series of ups and downs. But the more you practice embracing yourself each and every day, the more cushioning you will have to enable you to deal with whatever it is that life decides it wants to throw at you at the times when, maybe you're feeling a bit vulnerable, or you're tired, or you're hurting, or whatever it is that's causing you these difficulties. Give yourself a break, my friend. Remember that attaining self-love is just another thing that you used to beat yourself up about. And once once you feel like you've fallen off the wagon, or you tell yourself that you're a failure, then you start to get that negative mindset again. So slow yourself down, go easy on yourself, and just really think about, whatever arises in your life is happening for a reason, whether it is to teach you something, to show you something, to remove something from your life that you don't need, or to bring something in that you do need. But when you can practice accepting and forgiving yourself, regardless of the situation, especially if it is something that makes you feel insecure or guilty, or that you really judge yourself negatively on, then you'll start to understand just how important the practice of self-love is. So that was a bit of a lecture, wasn't it? But let's get now to sort of the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about here. Because we all will go through some difficult life lessons, and they will be slightly different, and they'll play out differently for different people. But some lessons that you can take from this video is learn when to say no, or that's not true. You'll hear a lot of subliminal messages on your path through life, and you'll be told that I don't know, your body is the wrong shape, or your hair doesn't suit, or your clothes aren't right, perhaps you're not pretty enough, you're not clever enough, your personality isn't sparkling enough, you're not charming enough, you don't make enough money, you make too many mistakes, your mannerisms are unacceptable, or taking care of yourself and your needs is selfish. Do you know what? Blah, blah, blah. Okay? Not one of these things is going to do you any good. It's false. It's unhealthy. It's preconceptions that are designed to keep you part of the pack. Now, some of these things will creep into your mind and into your own personal belief system and start to really kind of pollute your self-perception. And in fact, many of these sort of toxic statements probably already form a lot of your self-image right now. Not many people out there really talk about disconcernment when it comes to learning how to love yourself, and particularly when you're trying to love yourself more. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's largely, it sounds quite a negative phrase, but it is so, so important. For example, how can you tell truth from lies without learning how to be disconcerting? Okay, think about that. To learn how to be disconcerting, you need to question everything, analyze what you're being told. And yes, this can be tiring, but actually it is worth every single ounce of your effort. And the more you practice it, the easier it will become. The answer is that being disconcerting will help you to sort through the noise and the mental rubbish and the chaos and all of the negativity from the beliefs, the truths and the beliefs. And it will separate harmful ideas from the positive things that we need to hear. So learning to say no, that's not true, or asking someone, is that really true? Do you really mean that? Will help you to start to uncover what the truth actually is and where the truth lies. The fact is, the truth is always, always grounded in love. But you won't necessarily always feel that way, because when somebody is consciously giving you negativity, you think, well, why would they be doing that? But the more disconcerting you can become, the more clarity you will have, and the more you will be able to support yourself in difficult times and situations. Another lesson I've learned is to always be your own best friend. More often than not, we are actually our own biggest enemy. If we spoke to other people the way we speak to ourselves, frankly, we'd be universally hated. Okay? You are with yourself 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You came into this world alone. You will leave this life alone, depending on your particular beliefs. But through all the glory and the pain, you are always, always at the heart of it with yourself. So doesn't it make sense, therefore, to be friends with yourself and to like yourself? Wouldn't that make your life so much easier? So you see, practicing self-love is really important, because in order to do that, we are consciously changing our relationship with ourselves from one that is often quite negative and toxic to one that is far more compassionate and considerate and understanding, just as we would with a best friend or a beloved sister, or even with, with a pet. So my question for you is, how close are you with yourself? Do you give yourself pep talks as a best friend would? Do you tell yourself that your hair is stunning, that your makeup's good, that you deserve treats, and that you are fun and exciting to be around and to spend time with, and that you deserve to do the activities that you love? Are you there to support yourself and hold your own hand when things get tough and things get hard and maybe a little bit messy? If you answer no, or rarely, or maybe even sometimes to any of these questions, then it's time to look at doing things differently from this point on. I want you to explore what it feels like to be your own best friend and to really sort of value and nurture yourself and your opinion. Think about one activity that you can do this week that really honors you, your beliefs, your love, your enjoyment. What is it that's really going to light you up? Just one thing. I want you to change the way you perceive your flaws, and stop thinking of yourself as incomplete, as negative, or don't judge yourself in such a harsh way. Don't consider yourself unworthy, because you're not. You're here, you're perfect, you're here to learn. We're all here to learn. And your friends, your best friends, would never say these things to you. So don't say them to yourself. That's a really, really strong message for me. And I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. You need to understand that what you are and what you have and what you offer is absolutely perfect, and you need to see yourself in that way. Now, that doesn't mean to become arrogant and self-obsessed, but what it does mean is that you need to be kind to yourself, go steady on yourself, and really sort of value who and what you are. I need you to realize that absolutely everybody struggles with, universal human emotions. We all can find fault with ourselves. We all feel insecure at times. And actually, that's perfectly okay. It is incredibly difficult to change the way you perceive yourself and your imperfections. And every time somebody points something out to you that you consider to be one of your personal flaws, or that you take as some form of criticism, you take that on board, and it can hurt you. It can make you feel angry, upset, defensive, maybe even bring about bouts of depression. But actually, if you can kind of flip that on its head, and sort of, instead of getting sad and upset about these things, if you can see it as an opportunity to allow yourself to grow, then that will make you so much stronger. And at the time, I promise you, if somebody said that to you, you would be utterly like, do you realize how difficult it is? People are saying negative things to me, and you're telling me that I need to grow from that. But if you can do that, you will eventually get yourself into a mindset of, what the hell? It's got nothing to do with anybody else. If I'm happy with me, then that is the most important thing to do. And what you'll find is, instead of getting defensive, you would feel a sting to your ego, but you would also feel gratitude, because It was giving you a chance to grow and to strengthen yourself and to make yourself a better person. So give yourself a mindset switch and see what happens when you start to perceive your imperfection as an opportunity to improve yourself and to grow and to become stronger. And see what happens when you face these inner challenges, head on with gratitude. Practice loving anything that arises, and healthy self-judgment or self-criticism or anything like that. Instead of seeing it as I'm not good enough, see it as, okay, I've got an opportunity to do something about this now. How can I change it? What are the core reasons behind this belief? And how can I, flip that around and turn myself into a better, stronger version of what I currently perceive myself to be? Now, don't get me wrong. Self-judgment isn't always a bad thing. In fact, we need it. We need to keep ourselves grounded to a certain extent. Otherwise, we would be intolerable. We need to be able to measure up to our ability to achieve certain tasks, and, whether that be at work or in relationships or at home. And we need to understand our own individual strengths and weaknesses so that we make smart choices. A complete and utter belief in yourself if you're stepping off a cliff possibly isn't the best idea. Not only that, self-judgment can actually save our lives, okay? So like I said, deciding not to drive after judging that perhaps you've had a little bit too much to drink, that is not the time to say I'm invincible and I can do anything. So I'm not sort of condoning this kind of behavior. But there are things that you can do and that you can start to implement really quickly and easily. So I want you to remember that self-judgment becomes toxic when it is used negatively. So minimize bad mouth comments or shame or things that harm or hurt yourself. Just move away from saying those things. It's unfortunate that most of us are in a habit of misusing this self-judgment, and we think that by punishing ourselves, it will make us stronger. And thanks to conditioning as children, it's usually socially acceptable to be abusive towards ourselves because that's what everyone else has been doing. And often we sort of make fun of ourselves or our own weaknesses to kind of almost as a bit of a self-defense to stop other people highlighting those things for us. We kind of think it's a bit of self-preservation. It's not necessarily always a good thing to do, though. Learning to love all that arises within you, whether it feels good or bad, is what you really need to be looking to do. And you really need to embrace things that are comfortable but also uncomfortable within you, because what it is doing is it's challenging you to grow and become a better person.